I slipped into this dark place. I'm usually a pretty upbeat, happy, outgoing person, but I've seen the true power of chronic pain because there was no hope and there was nowhere for me to go.
Jeff Krushell from Alberta lived with severe pain until he could no longer take it. After meeting with the specialist, he was told it would be upwards of 2 years before he could get the surgery he needed in the public system. This was compounded by a strange healthcare rule that forced Jeff to have to leave the country in order to get the care that he needed.
My back problems started, I think, much like a regular back issue would start, very mild, and it progressed rapidly. There was no major event that sort of set it off, but it got to the point where it was debilitating. I finally went to the doctors and we sort of watched my disc deteriorate over time to the point where it was bone on bone and I needed a surgical intervention. This pain, it engulfs you. It takes over, and I'm a pretty upbeat, happy person, but it sucks the life of you. I slipped into a very, very dark place. You know, I have a real appreciation for depression now and the darkness that revolves around that. And I got an appointment for a neurologist. So I started going up on this high, right? And going, okay, all right, we're going to get some answers. I see the neurologist, and this is in the early phases of COVID. And the neurologist says, Jeff, look, we definitely need a surgery here, but it's 1 to 2 years before I can even see you again. And then after that, the bottom falls out. And what do? There are no options. There's nowhere to go, and there's no way to handle your pain. I can't even tell you the emptiness and the helplessness that not just me, my family was going through at that time. Terrible.
Faced with an unbearable 2-year wait for surgery, Jeff decided to look at private clinic options across Canada. You're not going to believe how government legislation actually made it harder for Jeff to get the care that he needed.
So I started looking for private options. The only private clinic in Canada that I could find that was approved for the type of surgery I needed was down the road in Calgary, and I'm ecstatic, right? So I called the clinic up and they're saying, oh yes, for sure. Do you have images? Yes, I can send them to you. Well, how soon would you like to come in? I said, hey, listen, I'm 3 hours up the road. I could be there tomorrow if I can get in. She goes, oh, Jeff, hold on. You live in Alberta? I said, yeah, I'm right up the road in Spruce Grove. I could be there tomorrow. She goes, listen, that's unfortunate. Under the rules and regulations of the Canada Health Act, we're not allowed to do surgeries on residents of Alberta. And again, you can imagine the bottom falls out. What do?
What Jeff encountered is a strange healthcare rule in Canada where patients are generally not allowed to pay for private clinics in the province where they live, unless you live in Quebec. As an Alberta patient, Jeff was not allowed to pay for private back surgery in Alberta, but he could pay for surgery in BC. Similarly, British Columbians generally can't pay for back surgery in BC, but they can in Alberta. Jeff couldn't believe how bizarre this was and thought surely a politician could do something to fix this. So he wrote to all his government representatives. Here's what happened.
I think when I was told that I couldn't get this procedure in Calgary, right down the road from me, that's when I got angry. And I'm going, this can't be possible. And I actually talked to a few people there. I'm saying, look, there has to be some kind of way that we can overstep this boundary. You're telling me I have to move to BC, get my BC citizenship or Saskatchewan, and then I'm able to come back to Alberta to get this done? Makes no sense at all. And trust me, the people I talked to were as frustrated as I was, at least they appeared to be, right? I got angry. I sent letters, man. I sent letters to the Prime Minister. I sent letters to the Canadian Minister of Health, to my MLA, to the Premier, to the Alberta Minister. They all wrote me back. The crazy thing is, the federal guys were pointing the finger at the provincial guys were pointing the finger at the federal guys, and we're caught in the middle going, what do? Insanity. I have the letters.
Not only was Jeff frustrated, but the doctors and nurses in the private system are just as fed up because they want to help patients but are being blocked by the government. Jeff was willing to pay for his own surgery, which he shouldn't have to do as a taxpayer because he's already paid a fortune in taxes for the healthcare system. But he was prevented from paying for his surgery because of government red tape. Eventually, he used some of his professional contacts in sports medicine and was connected to a clinic in Atlanta that had a very good reputation. He was put in contact with Dr. Ray, a neurologist at that clinic.
It was fantastic. The hope came back, and Dr. Ray was just a beacon of light at a very, very dark time. At one point, he says, "Listen to me, Jeff, you're not sick. You've got a broken back, you got some issues, we can fix that." And I'm telling you, we hung up, my wife was on the call, in the room for that call, we hung up the phone, we both started crying because, holy smokes, after 2 years almost of frustration and pain, we finally now have a pathway that we could, and somebody that can actually help. My wife and I sat down and looked at our financial plan and said, well, it doesn't matter, we've got to do it.
Jeff's surgery was a success. He spoke extremely well of the care he received in Atlanta, but having to go to the US was a major inconvenience and cost him more money. If Jeff had been allowed to do his surgery at a private clinic in Calgary, his daughters and other family members could have visited him. Second, he wouldn't have had to spend money on airfare for him and his wife, hotel bills, and more. Giving patients like Jeff the right to choose between using the public system or local private options is something that has been debated in Canada for years. Consider this. Here's a list of universal healthcare systems that ban patients from paying for private health services. And here's a list of universal healthcare systems that give patients a choice between using the public system or private options. But there's another thing that provincial governments can do to help patients like Jeff right now. In the European Union, they put patients first and allow patients to be reimbursed for the cost of surgery in any country that is part of the European Union. Reimbursements cover up to the same amount the patient's government would have spent to provide surgery locally. So if someone in Sweden was waiting 4 months for knee surgery and was in a lot of pain, they could go to Germany or France or Poland and maybe get in next week. The patient would pay for surgery and then be reimbursed by the Swedish government. So in Jeff's case, if he had waited for surgery in Alberta and the cost to the government to provide the surgery at a hospital in Edmonton was, say, $50,000, then Jeff could be reimbursed for $50,000 if he went abroad. This approach is especially helpful for low and middle income Canadians who don't have the funds to pay for private health care. Ultimately, copying the EU policy would give Canadian patients hundreds of options in other provinces or other countries around the world, instead of being stuck waiting years for surgery in their home province. Canadian patients could be allowed to go to Japan, the US, Australia, Europe, and any developed nation. To learn more about the Cross-Border Directive and healthcare reform, visit secondstreet.org, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.